Yes, I do. I don't know who exactly did it, but it was supervised by Michael Chertoff, who they rewarded him, making him head of Homeland Security when it was over, and they made the prosecutor in my case #2 man in the Justice Department, right underneath Gonzalez. He was Deputy Attorney General there until this thing hit with the fellow in Nigeria, and now the fellow in Washington, D.C., who spent $1.5 million, he was acquitted in about 45 minutes because his attorney called him and pressured him, his own attorney, trying to encourage him to lie for the U.S. government against me. And what he did is he had a retired Navy captain who worked with him listening on the other end of the phone, and he then went ahead and did an affidavit. If you read the affidavit, you'd get sick to your stomach, Alex. Terms like this, there's no reward for honesty, Richard. They're going to get this guy. Why throw yourself in the mix? You didn't do anything. They'll have to indict you or do something to you. So just go ahead and tell them what they want to hear. They're going to get Traficant. Just go ahead and do what they want, Richard. This is what I'm up against. Now, let me tell you what. Here's the difference between me and Siegelman. 60 Minutes come in and did a story on Siegelman. I'm going to tell it right the way it is. When you're the #1 target of the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, 60 Minutes don't have anything good to say about you. Now, that's putting the hay where the goats can reach it, Alex.
Well, let's talk more about that. Were you warned when you...
If I didn't have this powerful Jewish animus against me, I think I'd be a very rich man for what they did. But I'm still the top target of Israel. Quite frankly, I think they're delaying that trial over there in Germany because they do not want me to testify over there in Germany. They're hoping that old man will die in Germany.
Well, let's expand. Let's expand on this Israel situation. Let's go through from the start. When did you first get on the Israeli lobby's radar? Were there back-channel threats to you in Congress? You know, did they warn you to back off first? What happened?
Well, first of all, right when I was running, they tried to get me $10,000 cash, and I told them, you keep your money and I'll keep my vote. So I think I was targeted before I ever walked down there. Second of all, I tried to cut foreign aid every year for everybody. I was asked a couple times to exempt Israel, and I said I wouldn't do that, and I never could pass any cuts. I worked hard to try and, we have people sleeping on steel grates, and we're sending money overseas. Don't make much sense to me. But finally, it became that Demenya case. I was called a Nazi supporter. I suffered great...
How did you get involved in the case?
They came to me, Alex, because they knew they were from Cleveland. They knew the government hated me, and they came to me last. They said no one would even talk with them. In fact, I was in my office overhearing the conversation outside, and they said, we come to Jim last because no one will talk to us, and we didn't want to come to Jim. We know the government hates him, but we have no one to look into our plight. And he says, and I never forget the son. I heard the son say, look, I never had a speeding ticket. I can't talk to an elected representative. My father's not asking to talk to him. I'm asking, what the hell's going on here? I said, send that young man into me. When I did that, Alex, my staff told me almost verbatim, if you get involved in this case, you are finished as a congressman. You're already on the hit list for your cutting foreign aid. You get involved with this case. Now, what the newspaper didn't print, they all printed Traficant supports Nazi mass murderer. What they didn't print was what I told the family. When they come in, I said, look, your father's been convicted of mass murder. If he is guilty, I could truly go over and pull the switch. But I believe you should be able to at least state your case to somebody in government, and it should have been your own congressman, your own senators. They said no one would talk to them. I got involved, and what I found out, Alex, that he was not Ivan.
Well, let me stop you. Think about this. You're a congressman. This guy is supposedly a kangaroo court convicted Nazi. And, of course, the Supreme Court of Israel said, actually, it's the wrong guy. It agreed with you. So why would you get into something this dangerous unless you had a sense of justice? So you began to look at the case. What was there?
Well, I was known in Congress for taking a look at things objectively, and people were not afraid to confide in me. Before long, I started to get whistleblower activity. And the whistleblower type of things I got led me to certain conclusions. And I moved with a Freedom of Information Act request on Demenya, and they just kept throwing it in File 13 and saying classified, classified, classified. And what I did is basically trick them, Alex. I started to look around and I researched, was there ever anybody tried for war crimes who was located at that Treblinka Poland concentration camp? And there was a man from Chicago, a Ukrainian, who ended up coming to Chicago area by the name of Fyodor Fedorenko. He was tried for war crimes in America at Treblinka, and and was acquitted in America. Alex, he then went to visit his family in the Ukraine, relieved of all the pressure. He was picked up by the KGB, tried over there, and executed. What I did is I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request on Fedorenko. And with that, I got documents from the State Department.
And he looked just like the other guy.
Yeah. Well, no, I got the documents I got from the State Department was in response to a request for information from one of our agents, Justice Department agents, over in Germany years ago, maybe 25 years ago. And it had on the bottom, Alex, it said they had another 100 pages in the file. I immediately got on the phone, and I called and got a Mrs. Poindexter, because they took all my files and everything. And I said, this man's been dead for a number of years. It's not classified. I want those 100 pages. And that woman sent them to me. And, Alex, when it come over, it had testimony of trials of everybody who identified Ivan the Terrible as a man named Ivan Marchenko. But the big thing was there was a photograph in there of two Nazis. And the guy identified the photograph as follows. He said, the small man on the right is Takchuk with the pistol. The tall man on the left is Ivan Grozny, the man the Jewish prisoners feared the most, Ivan Marchenko. Now, I had this, and I went on the House floor, and I said, Ivan the Terrible is a man named Ivan Marchenko. And when did you ever hear the Justice Department make a response? That night they put out a press release.
His name is even Ivan, and the only thing is he looked a little similar to the guy living in Ohio.
Not really.
Yeah.
When you hear this, the Justice Department went public and said there were two Ivans. Now, you know what I said? I said, you sure there wasn't a swing shift? And then I showed the photograph. When that happened, everything went underground. The Justice Department shut up. Next thing you know, I'm over in Israel. And I think it became a real issue. And I got to give credit to the Israeli Supreme Court. The Israeli Supreme Court looked at the evidence and said, take this man home.
But see, that's the issue, is the Israeli Supreme Court says he's innocent. You have the secret files. It proves it. Meanwhile, the American Israeli groups, after you. Stay there, Congressman. This is amazing information. James Traficant's our guest.